to start with Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. The Avs and Lightnings. Check out your points leaders for both teams entering this one. We have two of the best teams in the NHL over the last half-decade locking horns, including the most successful postseason and regular season squads, respectively, over the last 3 years. It literally doesn't get any better than this. Oh, actually it does, because we have Anna Dua from NHL.com and the riveting RotoWire duo of AJ Scholz and Paul Bruno. They're here to dive into some top DFS plays for the Showdown contest on DraftKings. So Nathan MacKinnon here, most expensive option at captain at 16.2. So that's 1.5 times the salary, but you get 1.5 times the points in return. Are you going with the top of the board here, or are you going to look elsewhere, Anna?
So Nathan MacKinnon, always great option. You can't go wrong with them, but you actually already showed my captain. I'm taking a look at Nikita Kucherov. I just think he has to be the best value for what he's listed at. 4th most points in the league this postseason with 23. And, he's played 3 more games than MacKinnon, but he has 5 more points than him in that span. And he had points in all but one game against the Rangers last series, and he's just been so dominant. I think he's the best bang.
Okay, Paul, what's your strategy here at captain, man?
You know what? To set up my pick, I need to make a couple of points first. I'm thinking that the layoff for Colorado will be a factor in Game 1. We've seen this before in recent seasons as well as in this playoff season. So I'm looking on the Tampa side. As I stated yesterday, I'm favoring them to win this series, actually. And they'll likely have the added boost with the return of Braden Point early on, maybe even tonight, while Nazem Kadri's still out for the Avs. My lineup captain, though, I'm going to agree with Anna. Nikita Kucherov, for me, is the top choice because he's the Bolts' top point getter in these playoffs. I mentioned yesterday on our show that he's had a very nice run, a historic run in the last 3 playoff seasons that has only been rivaled or exceeded by some guy named Wayne Gretzky. So that tells you the rarefied air he's been in. And it should be no different tonight. And in this series for him, he cost $13,800. I think that's a real good value for one of the top players in hockey.
AJ, there are multiple point-producing juggernauts here to choose from.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're just going to have to go 3 for 3 here. I think Kucherov makes the most sense based on his salary and his production. Look, I'm not saying by any means fade Nathan MacKinnon tonight. I think if you use Kucherov as your captain, you should still get Nathan MacKinnon in your lineup. If you really want to captain somebody from Colorado tonight, I would actually look at Cale Makar instead of MacKinnon, again, solely because of that price point. It's just too high here when you can get 2 other guys who are producing at significant value, similar, but I'm with these 2. I'm on Kucherov as my captain tonight.
Okay, so let's see if you guys and gal actually differ a little bit on who you decide to stack with your captain, AJ.
Well, for me, it's Stamkos. I think he makes a lot of sense at 8,600 here. You could certainly make an argument, maybe one of these 2 will, for Palat, who's also got 11 points in 10 outings. But I generally prefer Stamkos here because he's got more goals over that 10-game stretch and more power play points. But I certainly wouldn't argue against, instead of Stammer as your stack here, going with Palat instead.
Okay, Paul, what do you want?
He's reading my notes again, but that's usually working out well when he does. I'm on Stammer as well, leads the Bolts in goal scoring and joins Kucherov on the point on the potent power play for Tampa, so that's a plus. And he has a penchant for scoring such big goals in these playoffs as well. That's just added to his legacy as one of the best captains in hockey and one of the top playoff performers for the defending champs. His price tag, if I captain Kucherov, is only $8,600. That's a bargain, I think.
Okay, Anna, is this a clean sweep again?
I'm so sorry. I think this is a clean sweep again. It's just so tough to argue against Stamkos right now, especially after how well he performed in those Eastern Conference Finals, had 5 goals in those 6 games. And Paul's right. He scores the big goals when it matters the most. He really came to his own, was probably one of the most impactful players for the Lightning in that series that just finished. So you can't argue against Stamkos.
No, you really can't. Okay, I have a feeling we're going to get some different answers here. AJ, I'll start with you. Give me some value in this contest for Game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final.
Yeah, I'll start on the Colorado side. I think Andre Burakovsky comes in at just $2K. He's in a top 6 role, and perhaps most importantly about that, he's going to be centered by Mikko Rantanen, and that's an upgrade from his other centers in the past. So the fact that you can get kind of a share of Rantanen at a bottom dollar of $2K, he makes a lot of sense there. for the Lightning side, I still think you look at Corey Perry for 5,200, even though if point plays, it looks like Perry will get bumped to the second power play unit. But that's primarily been his entire role through this postseason. He is on a 7-game goal drought rather. So that's a concern. But I think even with point playing, Perry makes sense at 5,200.
Dude, the veteran forward making his third straight appearance in the NHL's championship round, all with different teams too. Okay, Paul, hook me up with some value here.
I'm going to give you different names from AJ. How about that? You must be happy to hear. I'm even contemplating the full line stack for Tampa's top unit with Andre Palat for $6,600. He's produced 11 points over his last 9 games, only being blanked once in that stretch. So look for him to hit the score sheet again. Looking at the Avs lineup, I'll be including Val Nichushkin, who got the great assignment as the right winger on the top line with the shuffling that they've done to put Rantanen at center on the second unit. He'll be riding with the big guns in Anaheim and Arizona, Anaheim. They're long gone. With the Avs, big guns only costing $7,700 tonight. I think that's a very smart play.
All right, Anna, hook me up with some value. Let's go.
I'm looking at a trio out of Tampa. I know AJ already mentioned Corey Perry, who I think is a great option. Nick Paul is 5,800, and he's just had a great playoffs. And I'm taking a look at Ross Colton. So he slowed down a little bit, but he still has the ability to show up and perform. And you know how important he was last year to help Tampa secure that championship. So I could see a big finals for him. Out of Colorado, I got to agree with AJ. Andre Burakovsky, someone who I'm looking at. I think he's playing an important role in the Avalanche in this series. And also, back when he was on the Capitals and they won the Stanley Cup, he had a great series against Tampa. So I think he's a person to look at.
Well, Anna, what about someone you'll be fading in this Game 1 showdown, or maybe someone that people need to proceed with caution if they're going to consider rostering him?
I mean, I'm staying away from the Colorado crease, I think. I'm not taking my chances there. I'm not taking my chances with Kemper. I'm not taking my chances with Francouz if he happens to be the goalie that they go with. I just think Tampa's riding this momentum and they have the advantage in net, so I'm staying away from them. And if you want to stay away from someone or look at someone with a little bit of caution out of the Lightning, Victor Hedman's always a great option, but he is one of the more expensive players, and he just hasn't been showing up as much as other guys on the Lightning have who are listed at better prices. So those are the 3 I'm kind of fading.
Okay, Paul, my guess would be you're going to fade someone on the Avs side too, since you're a little hesitant with their long layoff.
I'm right with Anna on the goaltending. I just can't trust either guy after a long layoff too. I think that the Bolts will capitalize early in this game, and then they'll counterpunch the Avs to death. That's what I forecast tonight. And I'm again with Anna on the call on the Tampa side. Hedman's got a big assignment tonight. He's got to be the linchpin to shut down that top line for Colorado. So I think he's going to lean on his defensive responsibilities and shy away a little bit from the offensive forays that we're used to seeing with him. I think he's going to save that energy in his own zone to be one of the leading shot blockers in this game for the Tampa side.
AJ, who's your top fade tonight?
It's actually going to be Andre Vasilevsky, which is crazy to think.
What?
But if you look at his game 1s in this series, game 1 against Toronto, he gives up 5. Game 1 against New York, he gave up 6. He did look good in game 1 against Florida, but Florida did absolutely nothing in this series. So I'm kind of discounting that one. So for me, Vasilevsky seems to need at least a game or 2 to kind of get everything rolling and then take down his opposition here. So I'm fading him tonight. It's not a full fade for the whole series, but just game 1.
Okay, so then prediction time, AJ. Who takes game 1? Does that mean you have the Avs, obviously?
In game 1, yeah.
Yes.
I think Colorado will get the win in game 1. They're at home. They're in the playoff, in the finals for the first time in forever. They've got a really strong team. I know they don't have Kadri. I know Tampa Bay is going to potentially get point back here, but I just think the factor of playing at home in this first game, I think they take the first one. Now, do they take the second one in the rest of the series? I'm not ready to make that jump quite yet, but game 1, I think, goes to Colorado.
Okay, Paul, and based off some of your comments, it sounds like you're on the opposite side. Do you think the Lightning take tonight?
Yes, sir. I see the visitors getting up to that early lead. I mentioned about the layoff and the impact on the other clubs in that situation. I think Colorado's going to fall prey to that. Their offensive stars will chase the game against the tight defensive structure of Tampa. I'm going to give you a score, and you know what happens when I give you a score?
Yep.
You can expect a text later on tonight and say, see, I did it again. It's 4-2 tonight for Tampa. Book it.
All right. Anna, Queen, let's go.
I'm going to be the tiebreaker, and I got to go with Paul on this one. I'm looking at Tampa. I think game ones, you always kind of lean towards the team that has the most momentum coming into the series, and for me, that's Tampa Bay. The Rangers really thought they stood a chance in the Eastern Conference Final, and Tampa just shut them down, and I think they're going to ride that, get a victory early on, but I don't know if they're going to get two. I think Colorado's going to bounce back. I think it's going to be a very close series, but I have the Lightning in the first game.
All right, so it's Canada versus the USA here, AJ. You've got our neighbors to the north going up against you.